Hi everybody, and welcome to our installment on running for OneBookOneCounty.com and MCC Reads. One of our selections, Running with Sherman, focuses on running. So I thought it would be interesting and inspiring to talk to a real runner and a friend of mine, Dr. Stacy Young, the president of MCC.
Hi, I'm Stacy Young. I was asked to come to you today to chat about my running. Obviously, I'm not built to run. I started because I was in the middle of my PhD program and I was really stressed, and I kept thinking when I finished my PhD program I would start running because I would have more time, but I realized kind of in the middle of my program that I needed a stress reliever. So I started running. I started running at lunch, and at that time I could not even run 1 minute. I still remember at my house going out and trying to run to the stop sign, and the first time I did it I had to stop, I don't know, 5 or 6 times, and it was only about a half mile, or 3/4 of a mile down the road, and I had to stop 5 or 6 times. The next time I went out, and a few times that later, I was only able, I only had to stop 3 or 4 times, and then the time after that maybe 2 or 3 times, and eventually I got to the point that I could run that without stopping. And I kept going. Eventually I got to the point I could run a 5K, which is 3 miles, without stopping. I was really proud of myself. I also want to say I've done a couple half marathons and many 5Ks, and I've never worried about my time. I always just run because I know, at least I'm not standing on the sidelines. I'm doing something. I just never worry about my time. I feel like I'm old, so just getting out there is half the battle. Anyway, I kept running. About a year and a half ago, well, honestly, I was counting my calories, and I realized the more I ran, the more calories I burned. So I started getting up a little earlier. My sister and I always meet to exercise in the morning, and I started getting up a little earlier to run a couple miles on the treadmill so that I could burn more calories, so I could eat more calories later in the day. And I realized at some point that I had started running 5 miles before I met my sister, and then we would run 5 miles, and so I realized that I had gotten up to quite a few miles in a week, and I had seen a challenge at the beginning of the year that you could run across America. Now, they don't recommend that you do this in 1 year, but I thought I might try for a year. It's about 3,500 miles, and so I decided, well, I'm going to do it in a year, and I calculated it out, and I had to run about 10 miles per day. And I started doing this. Oftentimes I found that I was running 12, 15 miles, sometimes even 18 miles in a day. And so I would do this. I only missed 2 or 3 days over the course of a year because I had to stick to it. And I had to do it early in the morning so I could get it out of the way before I went to work. So almost every day I had 10 miles in before I even left for work, and then often I would run at lunch. So and by the way, running at lunch is really key for me because I have found that if I'm stressed out or have a problem I can't figure out, running in the middle of the day gave me energy and also helped me solve a lot of problems in the afternoon. So it's something I highly recommend if you can do it. But anyway, I ended up getting my 3,521 miles, I think it was, done within about 11 months. And my average ended up being a little over 10 and a half miles every day. And like I said, I only missed 2 or 3 days throughout the whole year. I think there's a couple key things that I have learned over the course of the last 8 or 9 years. First of all, I couldn't run 1 minute when I started, but you have to just get started. I also can tell you that I still don't really have fancy running gear. Everyone tells me I should buy more expensive shoes, but I have some of my old shoes sitting here. Every pair I've ever bought are under $40. I buy them on sale. I usually buy them on clearance. I found a brand that works for me, and so when I find them on sale, I buy them. I have to usually retire them about 500 miles. I still run every day. I don't run 10 and a half miles every day because my body was starting to hurt a little bit. But they say that running and walking are some of the most inexpensive exercises, and I'm here to tell you, you don't need all the fancy stuff. You just really need a pair of shoes to go out running or walking. Besides a stress reliever, for me, I always feel closer to God when I'm out running, especially if I get to be outside. And I think it's a great time to solve a lot of problems. When I get to run with my sister, we chat, of course, but when you're running by yourself, there's something special about that. Thank you so much for letting me share my running story with you today.